While looking for the perfect Christmas gift, how about a new book for the historian in your family? Author Carol Ferring Shepley is here to tell us about a book that has some big significance here in the St. Louis area. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so this is St. Louis, an illustrated timeline. So tell us about this fantastic, and I have to say, very heavy book.
I love St. Louis history. 5 years ago, I published a book about Bellefontaine, and that intrigued me to know about the people who weren't in Bellefontaine, also about the people who weren't in the conventional histories. So Reedy Press actually approached me about doing something for this big year, the 250th anniversary. So I came up with this idea of the stuff that isn't normally in the history books. So the subtitle is Blues, that's for music, baseball, there's lots of sports, books, literature, civil rights, lots of African American history, women's history, and the river, because the river underlies it all.
And it sounds like what you were saying, there were certain things that kind of thread through all of these different historical moments and times and people, and tell me about that.
Well, I didn't want this to be just a book about the government and the business, so I have threads about women's history because there are lots. This was a Western city. There were lots of firsts for women's history and African American history because I feel we're part North and part South, so we've been a real crucible for the civil rights movement in the whole country.
So you have, that's what I was going to say, a lot of people, there's just so much to see in such a rich history here in St. Louis. Is there anything that stands out here? I know I picked out a couple of things in the book. I know, and actually, interestingly enough, you had, you know, of course, you have the Dred Scott decision and a lot of things like that. But what I found interesting, too, is that you had a little bit, a tidbit about the Titanic linked to St. Louis.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
when the Titanic was in the North Atlantic.
Right.
Well, Carlos Hurd, who was a reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, happened to be traveling to Europe with his wife on the Carpathia, which was the ship that came and saved the people from the Titanic. So when he got to New York Harbor, the shipping lines didn't want any of the news out, so he wrote it on whatever paper he could. Some say it was practically toilet paper, put it in a box and threw it to his editor, who was on a tugboat. So then the New York World, which was also a Pulitzer paper, scooped the world.
Oh my goodness, that's wild stuff. So I know you have a lot of, definitely some history in here, and you were able, before, it looks like before you went to print with this, you were able to put in some elements about Ferguson.
Yes,
I found that. So tell me about how you came to add that in.
Well, because I was writing a lot about the civil rights movement, and I talked about how, well, we started with the Dred Scott case. There's Gaines v. Canada, which led to Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education, which desegregated the schools, Shelley v. Kramer. So, you know, Ferguson was just happening as I was going to press, so I couldn't do a section on it, but it is my hope that we've made progress in civil rights here in St. Louis in the past, and this will lead to progress for the future for the region, and I hope for the whole country.
Okay, let's give people the insight of where they can get your book, because I know you have some signings, a lot of signings coming up, but you have one tomorrow?
Yeah, I have one tomorrow at Christopher's in Kirkwood. Next week I'll be at Barnes & Noble and at the Book House in Maplewood, and you can get it at any bookstore at the History Museum. Okay,
just out of curiosity, how much is this book? Because it's very nice. I mean, beautiful color, pictures, the paper is, you know, it's really nice.
Oh,
really nice, you know, coffee table type book. You
it's
definitely take a look at.
$36.
Okay, see, that's a nice affordable Christmas gift, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, St. Louis, an illustrated timeline. We'll be right back.